Hey everybody, it's Joe the 3D Printing Professor, and in a recent video I had somebody complain that all I do on my channel nowadays is promote PrintAQuest, my 3D printable board game with little minis and stuff that you can make on your own. And, okay, at the time I was in the middle of the PrintAQuest campaign, so of course I was going to be doing a lot of PrintAQuest here on my channel. It's all I was doing at the time, but the campaign is now over, and I have just about wrapped up everything that I wanted to do with that campaign. I'm going to deliver those to the backers, and at that point, I got some bad news for you, because there's a lot more PrintAQuest I want to do, and quite frankly, I'm locked in to see as much of this through as I possibly can. But we'll talk about that in just a little bit. For now, if you are coming from the future, there's a good chance that you found this video because there is one question that I'm probably going to put into the title and thumbnail of this video, and I don't want anybody to accuse me of clickbaiting, so let me just answer the question for you. Are Facebook ads worth it? In my experience, no, not really, but it is a more nuanced answer than that because there may be situations and circumstances where they are. So I will dive into that later on in the video if you want more details about that. Now, normally, when I run a Kickstarter, I write a post-mortem about it and put it up on my blog. That exists mostly so that I can have something to look back on before I start another Kickstarter. Now, this time, I wanted to do something a little different with my post-mortem and make a video post-mortem about it, partially because these days videos are just more findable. And there were some things that I did that I thought people would really want to know the answer to, like, are Facebook ads worth it? I'd never done them before this, and so I wanted to present this video to answer that question and also maybe answer some other questions that people have about Kickstarters. So let's start at the very beginning, which I hear is a very good place to start. I've run several Kickstarter campaigns, usually about one per year, and they're an opportunity to really lock in and do one project, focus on it for a while at the same time raising funds for the channel so that I can do better and cooler things. Now, in the past, when choosing a topic for a Kickstarter, I would just kind of choose whatever interested me at the time and hope that people would be on board for it. This time, I decided I would do something different, and instead of me coming up with whatever the heck I wanted, I would come up with several ideas and let my audience pick which one they wanted to see. And the responses from that one kind of surprised me. Honestly, there were only really 3 ideas that stood out and everything else was just kind of middling. And in fact, one of those ideas wasn't even that great. PrintAQuest scored very, very high, and the chess sets also scored surprisingly high. And then Chibi Quest, the idea of a quest game but with cute little characters instead of realistic characters, was up there but not as high. So I thought, okay, let's get rid of the chaff. And do I want to have PrintAQuest competing against Chibi Quest? No, let's just get rid of that. I was going to do 3 ideas, but I decided I would just do 2. I made a couple of videos about that. I made a new poll about that. And the clear winner after all the polls were tallied was PrintAQuest. People very clearly wanted to be able to use printablocks to make terrain and have minis that they can play with them. So that's what I did. I'm really glad that I didn't just pick what I wanted to do, but that I let my audience decide, because I think that that lent a lot to the success of PrintAQuest. Honestly, if it had been my choice, I would have 100% done the balloon animals, but clearly they were a lot less popular than I perceived them to be, and honestly, at this point, I'm not disappointed that they fell by the wayside. So with the topic on lock, I needed to start building the campaign, and I did it like I've done in the past. I came up with a minimum viable product that I could use to present to people as this is the idea that we're going for, and then I worked on the Kickstarter page. And as I worked on the campaign, I continued to work on that minimum viable product, building it out. Now, in the past, stretch goals have been kind of something that's difficult to predict. With low poly dinos, I set the tiers for the stretch goals way too low and ended up working way too hard on that campaign, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing because low poly dinos weren't super difficult to model. But now I was making models that were much more difficult, required a lot more time and effort to put in there, and so I felt like I needed to set the bar higher. But if I set the bar too high, we wouldn't get to where we wanted to be in that campaign and people would be disappointed. I basically had to say, okay, I want this campaign to raise X amount of dollars. In the past, my campaigns have raised about this much, so I had something to work with off the pass, and I set my campaign accordingly. And my idea was $8,000. If this campaign raised $8,000, I was going to be very happy, and we were going to move forward with good things. So I made it so that at $4,000, everybody who backed the campaign got essentially 2 sets of terrain tiles as well as a bunch of minis for it that would work. And then if we got to $8,000, that I would add a third. And at that point, I was like, I'm capping it at that point. That would have been a wildly successful campaign. Well, overall, the campaign didn't raise that much, but I still feel like I feel like I both set the height too high, because making a whole second tier of terrain tiles for this one is proving to be rough, because it's more than just terrain tiles. It's also the rules, it's the maps, it's the campaigns, it's all that stuff for it. And so this setting it so that I would have had a third one that I had to do if we reached $8,000, I would not be done with this for a while. I'm discovering that it takes like 3 months to make one of these campaigns, and I was going to promise 3 of them if we reach that. So in a way, it's kind of good that it didn't reach the top goal that I was looking for. I mean, I'm always looking to raise more, but I would not be done at this point if that were the case. However, I also don't feel like, I feel like the people who backed it and helped it and supported it are definitely getting their money's worth for their $15 pledge, and it set a good place for this. I don't think that I got the tiers exactly correct this time, but I got them pretty good. Now, when making a board game, it's generally speaking considered good practice to not start with the fancy minis and the fancy terrain, but you start with a paper prototype, and you play test the heck out of that paper prototype. Because a lot of people will run these Kickstarters that look very pretty, but when the rewards deliver, people actually play the game and they're like, this game is garbage. Can you fix the game before you make all the pretty parts of the campaign? Well, no, because the pretty parts are what sell the campaign. And I think that for PrintAQuest, it wasn't pretty enough, because I wasn't making pieces that looked good in renders. I was making pieces that actually 3D printed well. And the people who actually print this campaign out will discover that it is much more printable and much more accessible than other campaigns that produce 3D prints for people that make them look really good on screen, but they're very difficult to print. But as a result of that, I went for the pretty first, and yet I didn't go for them to be as pretty. And I'm just mentioning that because I wonder how much of that plays into the success or not of PrintAQuest. But going forward, I don't think I'm going to be able to change that. I still need these pieces to be fully 3D printable. However, like I said, if you do print them out, I think you'll be impressed. Now, another thing that I didn't anticipate, when I started this campaign, I intended for everything to just be generic. I wasn't going to be writing a story for this thing. I wasn't going to be trying to insert any sort of lore into it. That's ridiculous. Y'all just want the pieces that you can play with. You don't want me putting my ideas onto these pieces. That didn't last very long for 2 reasons. One, I don't think that way, I guess. I want to make things that are fun and vibrant and a little bit whimsical. And 2, I have this old notebook that I started back when I was in college, and it has drawings and it has story ideas and it has books and stuff like that. It includes within it a story that I have been working on that I wanted to make a video game of, but that never happened. And then I thought, well, maybe I could take this story and turn it into a young adult novel, and that never happened. And it became the perfect story to insert into PrintAQuest. Now, however, that brought along with it a bit of a situation because I had designed this world. Like I said, I've been working on it for 25 years. It's expansive. It goes all over the world. There are all kinds of interesting characters that show up in it. I almost can't not explore it more. I'm locked into PrintAQuest. I'm going to be doing it for a while. This is going to be my magnum opus at this point, or my midlife crisis. I'm not really sure what's going on here, but the fact of the matter is I have a lot more PrintAQuest that I want to present to you guys, and so it's coming. So now for the main event, the thing that you all came for, because before running this campaign in the year leading up to it, I have been doing a lot of research about what's the best practices for running a Kickstarter campaign. And those best practices are pretty well known. Build an audience, and a lot of people use mailing lists to build this, but I've got YouTube, and then run Facebook ads. And you run Facebook ads before the campaign to help build your audience and see if there's enough, desire for it by the public. And then you run them during the campaign. And so I thought, well, I've never run Facebook ads before. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And let's take a look at how it went. I'm going to give you a little sneak peek here behind the scenes. This is not something that a lot of people show because it's boring, but this is the Facebook Ads Manager. And the thing that I want you to pay attention to right here is the amount spent. I spent $460.20 on Facebook ads. Now, I created several different ads and I tried to spread them all out. I was hoping that Facebook would say, okay, that one's not working, show it less. That one's working, show it more. I made as many varieties as I could. There were short videos, there were individual pictures, there were several different types of each kind, and I threw them all out there. And then I told Facebook, go ahead and spend $25 per day, and I gave it a specific window. And I wanted that specific window to intersect with the middle of my campaign, because the middle of a campaign is where you hit the doldrums. And I thought, if Facebook ads are going to bring in a bunch of new people, I want it to help during those doldrums. Plus, it would help me find out whether or not Facebook ads can get me through the doldrums, or if they actually helped at all. And I will say, looking at the daily data for the Kickstarter on KickTrack, there were no $0 days throughout this entire campaign. There was one $15 day, but there were no $0 days, which means that I never really hit the doldrums. Now, what you see here is the very first day is a wildly successful day where your audience rushes in and does all of their pledging, and it kind of ruins the entirety of the chart. In my opinion, tracking sites like this should cut off the first day and just go with the rest of it, because I'd like to show you the ups and downs throughout the rest of this at a better scale, but I can't adjust the chart. So we got what we got. But no $0 days, and the ads ran, like I said, in the middle of the campaign here, and it was only supposed to run for, I think, a week and a half, but it ended up running for 2 weeks, and I'll talk about that in just 1 second. So did Kickstarter ads prevent the doldrums from happening? Kind of hard to say, but maybe because this campaign didn't have any doldrums. And this campaign had a wider appeal, I thought, than the campaigns I've done in the past, which is why I wanted to run Facebook ads in the first place. I wanted to reach an audience that might not otherwise be watching me here on YouTube, but who would be interested in this because it's minis and it's fantasy and it's gaming, and that's not something that I do a lot of on this channel. Or haven't in the past, but I'm probably going to be doing more of it in the future. But I thought Facebook ads would be a good way for me to reach those new audience people. And I think that it's worked to a certain degree. There are some people who I know have joined the campaign who had never watched any of my videos before and are totally into the gaming stuff, which I've been into since the beginning, so I'm kind of excited to see. Now, I mentioned that the ads ran a little bit longer than I intended. Yeah, that $460 that I spent was only supposed to be about $300, but I made a setting wrong, and I thought that the ads were going to stop at a certain point. And then I was pulling up my phone. I was playing a stupid game on my phone, and I saw one of my ads for PrintAQuest on here, and I was like, that's freaking cool. And then the time that they stopped happened, and I was still seeing those ads. But I thought, well, I told them to stop, and they're still showing my ads. So clearly, they just need ads to run, and they're just giving me free advertising so that they could have something to fill the space. They don't do free advertising, guys. If you're seeing your ads, you're paying for them. So don't. Yeah, I ended up spending more on these ads than I intended. But, I mean, the whole idea is you spend money to make money. And did it make money? Well, once again, I'm going to pull back the curtain for you, this time on the Kickstarter dashboard. This is where you can get all kinds of information on how your campaign is doing and where people are coming from. So let's take a look at that. Backer sources here, the biggest piece of information that we can use here. Number one source of the money that came in. We're looking at the column of percentage pledge. This is the dollar amount that was coming in, not necessarily the number of pledges. It is possible that the number of pledges can be lower, but the percentage can be higher if the people who came from that source are backing more money. You know what I'm saying? If they're higher tiers and stuff like that. Now, in this case, YouTube both provided the highest number of pledges and the highest percentage of the pledges. Right after that is direct traffic, no referrer information. People who typed in my campaign, or people who I forgot to put a referrer link on the link that it went out to, which I thought I had done that on all of the links. It's one of those things that you can do to keep track of stuff, but somehow or another, the number two way is people just finding me directly. And I don't know how that happened, but hey, 15% of the pledges ain't bad. Next one is email, automated, new project from a creator that you back. That is sent out by Kickstarter, and it did well. Next is Kickstarter discovery. In other words, people searching Kickstarter. 8 people found me that way, and they provided 7% of the backing. That's not bad. And then the next one, Facebook. Facebook provided 26 pledges, which resulted in 6% of the total pledges for a total amount of $390. Now let's go back to the ad manager. I spent $460. I made $390 from Facebook. Now, on the face of it, this seems like, yeah, Facebook ads aren't worth it. However, there are some caveats here. Number one being that, remember that number two source, direct traffic, no referrer information? How many of those people came from seeing the Facebook ad and just swiping past it, because that's what we do on ads, but then going, whoa, hold on for a second, and searching it up and coming to me directly? Or how many of those were from other sources that they saw the ad and it influenced their desire to jump in on that? That tier raised over $1,000. Is it possible that some of those people came from the Facebook ads? Yeah, it's possible. Is it likely that a lot of them came from the Facebook ads when only 26 people came from the Facebook ads directly? I would say it's not likely that the number of people coming from the ads but not through the ads is higher than the number of people coming to the ads through the ads. You know what I'm saying? So is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? I don't think so. Also, I want to point this out about the campaign. The standard tier for getting, all of the STL files on this campaign was $15. And I set it at $15, despite the fact that a lot of people were going, you could set that way higher, and you should. I set it at $15 because I wanted to have volume over, anything else. I wanted it to be a low enough price that people would go, that's brain dead. Yeah, go ahead and sign me up for that at $15. I'm not sure how well that worked. A lot of other campaigns like this are setting their base tier at $35, $40. And had I set my base tier higher, even just $25, then if the same number of referrals came through the ads, then the amount of money that I would have made would have been more, and it would have been worth it. However, you got to keep in mind that on a different campaign, if I were selling actual physical prints of a game, then you know, you take away the cost of materials and cost of advertising, cost of all that stuff, and it's eating your profits. In this case, it ate all of my profits and more. You have to set the price to include the cost of finding people. And at $15, I'm not sure that I did that. So should I have set this higher? If I had, then the Facebook ads might have been more effective. However, I didn't. So that's where it is for me. But for somebody else, it might be effective because their profit margins are different and they have priced it to include that advertising budget. So what comes next? And will I be using Facebook ads on that next step? Like I said, there's a whole bunch more PrintAQuest that I want to keep doing. And am I going to run a Kickstarter campaign to develop the next expansion for PrintAQuest? Maybe. I haven't decided yet. However, what I do want to do is, like I said, I feel like PrintAQuest will appeal to a larger audience, an audience that maybe doesn't have 3D printers. So I want to explore the option of self-manufacturing this, because I don't expect that I can take this game and license it to Hasbro or something like that. They're not going to want to 3D print a kilogram of plastic to send it out to people. But if I do it myself, I don't need to worry about what they want to do or not. So I am going to play with the idea of manufacturing. And I already have been, and that will be a future topic of discussion, whether a video or not. But going forward, will I use Facebook ads for those ones? I might. I might try them again, because I wonder if part of the lack of success of Facebook ads in regards to PrintAQuest is that PrintAQuest doesn't appeal to as wide an audience in its current form. I suspect that there were people who saw the campaign, clicked on it, which charged me money, and then said, oh, I gotta have a 3D printer. I don't have a 3D printer. And they closed it down. They went it away. If there was an option for them that didn't include having to 3D print that for themselves, would that lead to more success? I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. It's an experiment that's going to cost me a little bit of money, but if it pays off, then great. I mean, that's basically the way the game works. If it pays off, you go, yay. And if it doesn't, you go, hopefully I didn't spend too much money figuring that out. But if you have any experience with Facebook ads, if you have any idea for making better Facebook ads, let me know in the comments. And if you have an idea for what you would like to see me do in a future campaign, I'd also like to hear that. But that's it for this video. I hope that it's been informative and at least a little thought-provoking. I want to thank you very much for watching, and I want to remind you that you are a child of a loving Heavenly Father. He cares about you, and so do I. So take care of yourself, and if you can, take care of somebody else too, because we all need each other. I'll see you next time.